I'm so sorry. I just had to shift something, so I had permission to record, and now I can hopefully share my screen. Wonderful. Um, it doesn't usually go like this for anybody who's new, but now we're recording. We can share our screen, and I will begin our lecture. That's not a lecture, which is on Google Slide, which has just managed to disappear. There we go. Wonderful. All right, let's get cracking. Can everybody see me? Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
All right, super. Um, Welcome again, a second welcome. Sorry for several false starts. Um, let's get cracking into this little lecture. So, every third session during the 10-week term, we just do a little lecture to cover certain principles that we'll be discussing in relation to pictorial language, in relation to transcribing, in relation to certain principles of looking. Can anybody remember any of the ones that we covered last term? Don't answer, I'll just tell you. We started off with a lecture on mass. We moved on to a lecture on the silhouette. We talked about the indirect stare, and we had a lot of visual references. But for the introductory workshops, I just like to recap some of the beautiful work that's been made in these online sessions since we started around a year ago. So, and I also tend to start with a quote. Sorry for the American spelling, I just picked up on that. That's from Google. Color is a little inspirational quote. Color is not just a pigment on a canvas, but emotions made visible. Georges Seurat. So we will be specifically covering color this term, and I think this is a very important quote. I think so much of our critique when it comes to tweaking color, mixing the right sort of notes and harmonies, is something that's almost kind of entirely um, free of rationale. It's somewhat emotional, somewhat intuitive. There are a few kind of ideas about color, very basic ideas that were discussed. You know, the idea of sort of mixing, cross mixing, complementary colors, and those sort of things. But I think ultimately, when it comes to getting beautiful spots, it's about your connection to the color, your feeling for a color, your feeling for notes that reflect light. Um, but we'll get into that next week. This week, this is just a little recap of some beautiful work that's been made in these workshops, and also to help those that are new to kind of get a sense of our procedure. So initially, we're just looking at which are mostly a grouping of what I would call thumbnail transcriptions. And when I say thumbnail, the general rule of thumb, excuse the pun, is that the thumbnail will fit within this within. Can you see my screen? We all know what an iPhone looks like anyway. Within the screen of an iPhone. I mean, that's not a strict rule. They can be slightly bigger. They can even be quite a lot larger, so long as you kind of pertain to the idea of expressing generalities, sort of generalities of form. And here are some beautiful examples over the next few slides. So this is by these next few slides are by Anya, um, who I think might have made this last year, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah, this is after Chardin. This is from Poussin, which is in the National Gallery. It's called the Eucharist. It's a thumbnail that's a fragment from a Poussin painting. I tend to. This is actually an enormous, very, very complex composition, and I tend to suggest with the thumbnail sort of approach that we try and take on the whole design um, of a painting, try and take on the whole composition as opposed to a fragment, because working on such a small scale really gives us the chance to greatly simplify and filter out a lot of information, and it allows us to really focus on kind of the essential qualities of that design, and also, perhaps even more importantly for this term, general ideas of color that exist throughout the composition. This is another transcription after Chardin. Um, I think this was one of your first real breakthroughs in transcription, Anya. Um, by
Thank
the
you.
way, please, guys, this is an open, an open discussion. If anybody wants to ask any questions at any time, please do. There are absolutely no stupid questions at this stage, unless you've been working with me for a year. Then I'm joking. No, no stupid questions. So ask away. If you have any questions about anything that I discussed, just interrupt me because I can't see any of you at the moment. This is from Meta. Meta is not in the course this term. She's joining us in London for the landscape program in July, but she made this after Baltus, looking at Baltus painting, and this was after looking at a Titian painting. I think these are really exemplary thumbnail sketches for quite, there's quite complex figurative compositions here, and I think the sort of the way that she's simplifying, the way that she's seeing the broadest arrangement of spots is very helpful and worth looking at. I'm going to send everybody the link to this slideshow so you can check it after the workshop's finished today. But these are really helpful to reference just to get an idea how to proceed. How to get a sense for organizing shapes on such a small scale. Um, this was after Poussin. This is from Florentina. Um, she is not with us today, but this is another beautiful transcription she made quite a while ago now. After Baltus. I think landscape are lend particularly well to thumbnail transcriptions. This term we're really going to be pushing for really beautiful notes of color and really focus on on large color harmonies and trying to see the essence of the color within the compositions. And landscape, you can't really get away with mixing a bum note in a landscape transcription, because every note really should reflect the time of day, reflect the quality of the light source, the environment that the landscape is set in. Art's always somewhat a fiction, but a beautiful landscape really yeah, it is a beautiful metaphor for the sort of quality of light that we feel outside. This is a really stunning one after Corot. I think this is in one of our first lectures, one of our first workshops. She did this. It's after Titian. This is Agatha looking at Thomas Eakins, and this one's a very interesting one. It's there's a lot of precision in these simple shapes, but also there's quite a lot of invention coloristically. Because the value relationships worked pretty well. It's very beautiful. It's a very unique interpretation of Thomas Eakins. This is Michelle after it's a Chardin. Is this painting in Paris, Michelle? Have you managed to see it?
I'm not, I'm saving it up.
Okay. I think
I've just had the Paris Art Fair.
okay.
And so because that's only a few days, I thought I'd go and check that out, some of the contemporary galleries. A couple from London were there, Soho Review, and one from a couple that I recognised, but huge in the Grand Palais. So that
Okay,
took a
lovely.
few bits. But I'm saving it up. That's why I was looking at the Chardin, because I thought I
Okay, yeah.
can try the from the Louvre website and then go and check out them.
Yeah, you can go and see how your spots hold up.
Yeah, it was closed though, the Chardin bit,
I,
last time I went. So I
yeah,
just
they do close that section quite
yeah,
often.
yeah. So
This is from Sarah. This is a drawing thumbnail. So it's this time most of us are focusing on color because we've been working on drawing for the whole year. And the first term starts in September. We tend to just exclusively focus on drawing. The middle term is it's a bit of a mix and match. And for those who've been working with me previously, we will just work on painting this term. But everybody is also welcome to draw. And if you're new to the workshops, I would recommend just starting at least for the first few sessions working in charcoal or graphite. This is a beautiful thumbnail after Poussin, another one which is in the National Gallery from Sarah. This is Abigail looking at the Degas. I think this is quite a large drawing. However, the simplicity of the spots, the sort of focus on the abstract shapes and the large arrangements sort of lends also very well to the sort of way that we think when approaching these thumbnails. So I kind of still classify this as somewhat more of a thumbnail, but she hasn't quite had the opportunity to develop these edges, and also it doesn't particularly need it. You know, there's something very kind of beautiful and immediate and urgent in the simplicity of this drawing, and you know that's we're in these workshops we work exclusively really on premier cues, you know, exception, you know, if you feel like you need an extra hour here or there, then the next day that's absolutely fine. But we'll talk a lot about the sort of, you know, sort of urgency and directness needed to really translate these paintings into other paintings within the space of 3 hours. You know, sometimes people think of as a copy as something that might take months or even years, and that, you know, that's absolutely valid as well. But it's just not quite what we're focusing on in this particular workshop, and we'll get a lot more into that later on. This is Vaibhav after Vermeer. Lovely simplicity. It feels quite, you know, we talk often about this sense of distilling images, you know, sort of seeing the kind of essence of the shapes, the spots coming together in our mind's eye, you know, removing our subject once from nature and sort of internalizing its shapes and its edges, its quality of tone, you know, with our understanding in our mind's eye. So it's Lucy after Vermeer. And then, so we also work towards, you know, something slightly more specific in terms of drawing outside of thumbnails. I think thumbnails are an excellent way to begin these workshops, and especially when we're working in color, because I think that, you know, if you're struggling on that scale to get the notes working as well as they can, it's just worth persisting, worth staying small, worth kind of letting drawing just sit on the substitute bench for a little bit, and just really just having, you know, the ability to just focus on design and color and just a more kind of simple abstract sense of mass. It's very, very helpful, and it's what I'd recommend for almost everybody in the group initially. But then, you know, in the past and also, you know, at some point this term, we will get into a sense of drawing when we're developing specificity of edge a lot more. And this drawing of Abigail's that she made in the National Gallery, this is somewhere in between two worlds. You know, there's a nice kind of simplicity of spot and silhouette on the figure on the left, whereas in the central figure you can see she's starting to explore the quality of the form a lot more. And this is also a premier cue, you know, maybe slightly longer than a premier cue. I think it was a session and a half or something along those lines. And we're going to look a little bit more at drawings that at work from the previous terms that develop a sense of drawing a little bit more specifically. This is Meta. She did really excellently in thumbnails, so I suggested for her to work a little bit larger, to forget about taking on the full composition, but to take fragments of compositions, fragments of form, and just look to really, really develop a sophistication of edge. So use your ability to see simple spots, but then to, you know, to build a more complex sense of form and line into that sense of mass. This is a very beautiful example. This is what she made in the last session of last term, which was only a couple of weeks ago. Oh, I believe time's gone fast. This is one she did slightly earlier, um, a fragment of a Rubens painting. Interesting composition as well. Going in this close gives you the opportunity to really, really explore sort of the strangeness of looking, the sort of strangeness and surprising nature of the language in these beautiful works. This is Claire. Um, we all struggled a little. This is when we were working specifically just in line. We all struggled a little bit when it came to working on these fragments in line, and I really do encourage everybody to take it upon themselves to still work on this scale, to still every now and then pull back to working purely in line. Maybe if you're developing spots, just hold back on the spots for for the first half of the session and just see how far you can get in line. But procedurally, Claire really, really beautifully understood. Um, these are big drawings. These are on A2. So you can't hide, right? You're drawing an understanding of line and geometry has to be and an edge. They have to be spot on. Otherwise, it shows up straight away. Whereas with the thumbnails, you can get away with a little bit of a looser interpretation. Um, this is another line study after Ang. And even when we do get to developing fragments in color, and you are greatly simplifying the masses, pulling out a line as carefully observed as this really really can add so much intrigue and depth to your composition in the context of a very, very broad handling where we are just really looking to tune in spots in a very brushy way. Adding a bit of crisp line to your work really will help. And again, this isn't a big drawing on A2. And if you are taking on fragments instead of thumbnails, you want to work big. I think 40 by 50 is around the right kind of scale, centimeters for that kind of work. This was one of the last drawing Claire made last term, looking at David. And I think it was good for you, Claire, working on this scale and looking to develop the kind of a more complex edge. And really, these are quick drawings. These 3-4 hour drawings. You did some good work. We all still have work to do when working on this scale, but there's some somewhat lovely qualities to this drawing. And again, I love the sort of strangeness, the kind of unnameable, abstract quality to take you on a fragment like this. And you understood that very well. This is Natalia, who was working again very large, just really, really focusing on developing the linear quality of the work. He did a very good job. I think this is after Gentileschi. I might be wrong about that, but yeah, excellent job. This is Abigail's tea-stained transcription after Ang. It's a while ago. You've come on quite a lot since this, Abigail. But again, it's just a nice example of when you develop things in scale, how much attention the edges and drawing really, really need. And it's very challenging. I think we've all found that. This is actually a drawing that Billy Munden made on Tuesday night from life, and I just thought it was good to put in because again, it's a very beautiful drawing, and again encapsulates a lot of the work. It encapsulates that a lot of the work that we're doing in these transcriptions. It's very important to, as soon as you can, begin applying it to your own work and try and incorporate the ideas discussed, into work that you do, looking, directly at nature, at the motif, working from life. And like I've said to everybody many times before, it's great to bring in work that you've done at home for critique into these sessions, and I will absolutely find time to look at them. For those that don't know, if you do sign up to this course, you're part of this course. We have a mentorship program in our main group chat, and so we have in that mentorship program we have a critique every Monday, and often people are sharing their works, their thoughts on painting, and it really gives you the chance to sort of keep painterly thoughts throughout the week, and have the kind of support and community you need when working on painting, because it can be a hard slog sometimes. And another thing worth mentioning is that these classes are fun. We've got a great rapport, but everybody works really hard, and we are, I'm not the sort of person that gives, unnecessarily generous crit. We're always looking to push, to improve, and good crits can be hard earned. But we've got a fantastic group, and people have worked extremely hard the last couple of terms. So you're in good company. And also, Billy developed some transcriptions in his own time, and these are paintings that he worked on outside the kind of time of a premier coup. I think he worked on these for around a week, or at least 3 or 4 sessions. And I know that's also an excellent idea. It can be really, really good to just explore things in a little bit more detail, to play around with drawing a little bit more, to play around with tweaking color. And it's definitely time well spent. I've invested in quite a lot of long-term transcriptions, and I've learned a lot from them, and they make beautiful works. This one I think is a little bit quicker actually. This might have been a premier coup. Um, and we've been speaking about this painting recently in the group. Um, and okay, yeah, so just last 2 slides. I've seen someone said something in the chat. I'll have a look after. So this is from Florentina, and the reason I put this slide in, because we were really focusing on color in her transcriptions, and we had to sort of, again, sub drawing for a little bit, just to focus on the harmony of 2 notes coming together. And I think that a lot of people feel under pressure in a 3 or 4 hour session to fill their canvas, to include lots and lots of form, and lots and lots of elements of what you see, but it's absolutely not necessary, at least initially when focusing on color. If you spend 3 or 4 hours just tuning notes to this degree, it's absolutely time well spent, and it will inform your painting practice enormously. It's incredibly helpful, and it's sort of something that we all need to do as painters. If we haven't spent the time really, really fine tuning our notes and taking color really seriously, we're really going to struggle to kind of incorporate that sort of atmosphere, and quality, that sort of airy quality into our work that so many of the artists that we are transcribing just have in abundance. Like, this is after Corot. We look at Chardin. We talk about Morandi a lot. Even Bautis. They just have, and Degas, just exquisite. The level of attention and sensitivity in these notes are just absolutely exquisite, and it takes time and restraint. This is another one from Billy, and this is interesting for those that are working from the figure, because he's filtered out a lot to kind of get to such a simple interpretation and economical interpretation of the form, and it's a helpful one, I think. And he's really focused on mixing. There's some nice notes and nice handling within this fragment, and I think it's a useful one to think about fragments. To look at if you're thinking about developing a fragment of form like this, because he's kind of balanced color and drawing pretty well. And that's our lot. So I'll stop sharing the screen. And yeah, I have someone said something in the chat. Sorry, I don't know. How do I look at that? Sorry. Who was that? Who's been chatting at me? I'm not quite sure how to open it.
Amy.
Amy,
I answered my question already.
I already answered
Thanks, Abby.
Cool. No worries. So, has anybody got any questions? And I would encourage you to ask questions before we start. And no, like I said, there's no stupid questions, and everybody's welcome to chat. So, who wants to start with questions? Go on.
I will start. I know. It will inevitably be a stupid question. Are we supposed to focus today on the spots of colour?
Yeah.
Or the notes? You want to expand on that?
The difference between spots and notes.
Yeah, well, no, they're just in general what we're supposed to
Yeah,
be
so
doing
so
today.
so I would, yeah, I certainly would. Today it's a little bit of a free for all. We're just getting back into working with each other after the break, but certainly from next week onwards, I really want everybody just to slow things down and to just focus on the power of two beautiful notes coming together. Yeah, that's absolutely our priority for the first few weeks of this term. And then hopefully we'll have some success of that. And then we'll start to incorporate, more drawing, more composition going forward. But just like we started with line last term, I really just want us to sort of isolate the problem of color and just not to distract ourselves, because obviously we need to balance so many things. Painting's like a constant act of juggling. Um, juggling swords even, I think, because it's easy to get hurt. But I do want us to focus on color where possible, and that's why I shared those last two slides, because you can see that that's at the sort of the forefront of the thinking in those works. Um, so not a stupid question at all, and there are no stupid questions, guys. So just please don't be shy. Anyone else? Unless you're Raha, I'm sure Raha has a stupid question up the sleeve. Uh, anyone else?
Hi, Josh. Yeah, me.
Okay.
I was going to do the Balthus girl on a chair.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether to do the whole thing as a thumbnail
So I
or
think,
to
yeah,
a slightly larger fragment.
I think that both can be absolutely fine. I think, doing a thumbnail just takes a bit of pressure off you in terms of drawing, and just gives you kind of somehow more brain power to just kind of focus on pure color. But I just would say, don't feel like you need to finish it, right? It can be beautiful with three or four notes. That's all you need, right? And I think it's important to sort of, for all of us, to sort of wake up to the beauty of several notes of color coming together. So yeah, I would suggest thumbnail, but there's no rules. It's what inspires you, really. Um,
Thank you.
my pleasure, my pleasure. Anyone else? Go on, one more. Go on. Yeah. Hey.
Just to check. So you mentioned it's okay for kind of newbies to potentially work in like graphite or something
Yeah,
today.
absolutely fine. Yeah, and if you have any sort of questions about what's worth transcribing, what's worth picking, I can absolutely help you with that as well. Some of us have transcribed the same painting, like four different people have transcribed the same painting about, many times over. So there's nothing wrong with picking something that somebody else has already done. In fact, that's probably a brilliant idea, just because it can help you get into sensing a way of feeling and thinking a way around it. But yeah, drawing is absolutely fine. I would suggest several things, though, if possible, to use as soft as pencil as possible, and also to use a putty rubber, if you have one. I'm a big fan of putty rubbers. I just think it's like an extra drawing tool. Charcoal and graphite sticks are also wonderful. If you've got any questions just about technically how to use them, then that's absolutely fine. But after you've worked for half an hour or something, I'll see what you've been up to, and then I might, suggest maybe handling it in a slightly different way. Is that cool? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, great, thanks.
Amazing. Anyone else before we get cracking? Okay. Oh, is that someone about to start? No. Okay. So let's get started. Some of you aren't in the. Rahas just said, "I don't have any stupid questions, only provocative remarks." It's true. It's true. You don't. Um, in has anybody? Has anybody? Yeah. Is anybody struggling with the Padlet? I think we're all struggling with the Padlet. So I'm going to upload everybody's nicknames, and I'll explain my logic behind the whole nicknames for this term next week. But I'll add everybody to the Padlet, and I will try and put it in the chat box, the link. So the Padlet is where we upload our original source material, the paintings we're transcribing from, and it's also where we upload our work for critique. So I can share screen and have everybody look at hopefully at the critiques at the same time. So that will make sense, and we'll do that in about 40 minutes. Cool. That's it. Everybody get started. I'm here the whole time. There's no stupid questions. It doesn't matter how small your question is. Please just ask me. And yeah, just give it your best shot. There's not going to be harsh crits today unless I've been working with you for ages. Just enjoy, just get into it, and just let yourself be free and paint basically. So yeah, can't wait to see what everyone gets up to. I'll see you in 40 minutes. I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I'll share my screen in 40 minutes and we'll start uploading to the Padlet. I'm going to post the link now. Okay. Perfect.
Josh,
Yes.
hiya. I'm just wondering if you could tell me what the password is, just because I could join the meeting on my phone, but not on my computer.
There shouldn't be a password. I've never. Has anybody been prompted for a password before? I
So
don't.
the
I'm not sure why, but I'll send you everything I have.
so the numbers, the meeting ID 883 5345
Is that
134.
sorry, yeah. So hold on. I'm not the most technical as I.
No, nor me.
Yeah. So hold on. Let me just see. Someone, if anyone can help. So what's it saying on your computer? It's asking you for the password.
So I think I've put the right one in. So the meeting ID, shall I just check with you?
It basically usually what happens is that there's a link in the WhatsApp group, which I can email to you, and usually you click on.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll
yes,
email
please.
that to you, and then usually Zoom just opens. So
Oh, thanks, Josh. That's great.
no worries. And if you have any issues, just give me a shout. I'm just emailing that to you now. It's it. What's your email? Esther at.
Oh, it's Corley. Hang on.
Just give me the first few letters.
Corley
Yeah.
Esther at Gmail.
Okay.
CAW.
I'll find you. You've emailed me before, so I'll find you. All right. I'll send that right away. Is everyone else okay with computers?
Thank you.
Hold on. Have you emailed me? I can't seem to find you.
I'll just, so it's Corley, CAWLEY, Esther, ESTHER,
Oh,
at gmail.com.
okay. All right. Super. I'm just sending that to you now. Okay.
Thank you. Perfect.
All right. That's sent. Should hopefully work.
Joshua.
Hey. Hi. Yes.
Hi, sorry, I joined late.
No
It's
problem.
5 in the morning.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. A very early start. Don't worry, we recorded the first session, so you're not part of the session, so you're not going to miss anything.
I just wanted to apologize for coming in at it's like 40 minutes and half an hour.
No
Yeah.
problem. It's lovely to have you. It's lovely to have you. Are you ready to draw and paint?
Yeah, I think I'm going to draw because it is very dark.
Okay.
It's like 5 in Canada, so it's very dark.
Super. That's very very brave of you. Yeah. Have you picked something? Have you picked a subject?
Um, Not in particular. I was wondering if it would make any sense because I could use the internet, but maybe it's better to use a book instead.
So a book is absolutely fine, especially if you're drawing. Sometimes if you're transcribing in color, it's useful if we're looking at the closest image as as possible. So just we can make similar color references. But drawing from a book is fine, so long as you can send me a picture of what you're looking at. That would be perfect.
Okay, and it can be anything, or it seems like
I think there are certain things that lend themselves better to transcription than others. So maybe show me what you're thinking of, and if it's not quite right, I can suggest an alternative. How about that?
okay. Should I just message you or?
Yeah, yeah, that'd be fine. Esther, sorry, I just got your text. It's not working.
Sorry.
Yeah, just message me. That's absolutely fine. It didn't work. Did you not get my email?
No, I just sent, just in case I gave you the wrong spelling, I've just added my
Right.
email.
Have you added that to where? To the
Oh, sorry, chat. Sorry, I just
Oh,
popped it in.
right, I've worked out how to. Ah, okay. Yeah, I think I did write that wrong. Okay, no problem. Sorry, I'm just getting used to Zoom on this computer.
Yeah, no, me too.
Okay, yeah. I've got you. Um, yeah, guys, whoever's just wants a bit of advice on whether whether they pick something that's useful for transcription, you can just send me a message on WhatsApp or Instagram, wherever, my email, wherever you have my details. My phone's right next to me, so that's absolutely fine.
Recording in progress.
Oh,
Sorry, that's me. I'll sort it.
no worries, no worries.
Oh.
It's to be expected with Zoom. And guys, it'd be helpful if in for my regulars, if you can upload your images into our WhatsApp group, because I'm a bit confused what everybody's painting from, and I will I'll upload it into the Padlet. Does anybody not have the Padlet link? I don't think Owen has it, so let me send that to you. Amy, I don't think that's too complex. I think that um, I think that there. I I always think that my kind of philosophy with copying is that initially it's always better to copy from the absolute best. And I'm thinking, Poussin, Velasquez, Titian, um, Veronese, um, Corot. Can you hear me, by the way?
I can, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
nodding.
So I quite like this painting, and I think in some ways it could lend quite well to transcription. But my advice would be to reach even higher. My advice, if you're looking at National Gallery website, would be to take a fragment of a Titian painting, um, especially some of the kind of the large figurative groups. They just lend beautifully for transcription painting, and I wouldn't take on the whole composition. I'd really kind of zoom in, like you've seen some of the others were doing, and just look to look to take on a fragment.
Okay, thank you.
Plug my Mac in because I stupidly forgot to do that. And yeah, just give me another shout when but you can't really go too wrong with Titian, to be honest. Yeah,
Thank you.
it's a safe bet. It's a safe bet. Do you have the link to the Padlet?
I think so. I think you sent it in Instagram.
I'm going to send it again anyway, so
Thank you.
I'm going to add everybody's section.
Got it. Thanks.
No worries. The squinting squid. I like it. Shaha, have you managed to find something?
I was originally gonna just copy because I have this book here of flowers by Manet, but maybe that's too simple.
It's not too simple. I think Manet is an interesting one to copy if you're working in color. His flowers are particularly beautiful. For drawing, there's such they're paintings that are so dependent on the kind of flourish of a brush stroke that I try and find something with a little bit more structure. Like I suggested to Amy, I always think going for the very shooting for the very best is a great place to start with transcriptions. A lot of people that have transcribed from Titian, from Ang, from Velasquez, from Chardin, from Balthus. That I would, yeah, I don't know what art books you have at home, but any of those guys would be great.
Yeah, I'm not at home right now. I'm going to school at university. I ended up sleeping in the studio school. No, I just have it's the lake flowers, so it's a pretty standard kind of like this. Oh,
For some
never
reason,
mind.
I know that I know
Get
those
rid of my back.
I know those paintings quite well. I just think
Yeah,
for drawing they would be less. I mean, you can go for it if you feel inspired by it. But I just think for drawing they'd be less helpful,
they're
perhaps.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, my recommendation would be to go on a website like the National Gallery website, which is really easy. The National Gallery of London, which is really easy to maneuver. It's a good website, very very simple to use, and to pick, perhaps start with a Velasquez. I think would be a wonderful place to start. Um, and or Titian or Veronese. Veronese is amazing. I don't know if you know his work very well, but lends very very well to transcription. And just shoot for one of the big dogs, so to speak, and they can teach us so much about painting and help us understand that how painting's a language after all.
Okay. So like a multi-figure, more
Well, so if
complex.
you're drawing, my advice would be to take on a fragment of one of those compositions. So zoom in, find a beautiful passage of several forms coming together, and yeah, and pick something along those sort of lines. It will make once you start to see everybody's work in the crit, which would be in about half an hour, it will make way more sense to you. So yeah, don't. Just you missed the first section where I showed just the examples of the work from last time. In fact, now that you're here, why don't I just, because everybody's working, I'm going to quickly run through those slides so you can get a sense of what people have been up to. How about that? Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, super. Um, so this is actually the last slide, but we'll go backwards. This is not a transcription, but most of them are. This is a transcription. This is a drawing from life.
So for the so for the process of the transcription in terms of painting, are we looking to abstract it?
Absolutely, yeah,
Like
absolutely.
to find out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're always looking for abstraction, 100%. These are big. This is a big drawing. This is on A2. Um, Amy, that's a beautiful crop. Go for it. This is sorry, just two people speaking to me at once. This is from Ang. These are big. Some of these are very big drawings. From Baltus is on A2, very big drawing. This is a painted transcription. I think it's quite big as well. Also quite large. And the rest of these from about here onwards are small. These are what I call kind of thumbnails. And you can approach, you could take on a full composition if you're, want to try and keep things as sort of simple as these two. It's a thumbnail. When you look back at the video from the lecture at the beginning, you'll see the names of all the artists, and we talk a little bit more about the individual works. But this is just to give you a sense of what people have been up to.
I will go find something by Velasquez.
Yeah, Velasquez would be a super place to start. Okay.
They look very deceptively simple.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah. Don't stress too much. It's the first session. We're all kind of regrouping and getting to know each other. So yeah, there's not too much pressure today. I'm just popping to the kitchen. If anybody needs me, I can hear you. So just give me a shout. Hi, Isabel. Didn't see you there. Welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Nice to meet you. I'm going to email you over the link to Padlet, so you can upload your work there. Are you okay? Are you okay finding something to paint? Have you managed to pick something out? I don't know if
Yeah, I just found a fragment of a Titian painting on the National Gallery website. So yeah,
if you can email me. Oh, actually, I'm gonna are you on WhatsApp?
I think so. Yeah.
I can email you my number in the chat. It's probably easiest if you send it there if possible, or you can email it, whatever you prefer. I just put my number in the chat. You can either send it via WhatsApp or just shoot me over an email, whatever you prefer.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I only just started it and it's
No, no,
pretty
no,
crap.
sorry,
So,
not your not your transcription. What you're working from, your fragment.
oh, okay. Yeah, I'll send that.
It will make sense because we're going to do critiques in about half an hour. And if you just started, you don't have to submit anything, but it's just perhaps helpful for you to see how it works and see other people's crits is also very informative. So no pressure to upload your work yet. No worries.
Okay. Yeah. I'll send through the fragment.
All right, awesome. I think everybody has a section now in the Padlet. Isabel, I've just sent you the link so you can see what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
No worries. The rest of you, we'll do our first critique in about 15 minutes. Um, if that's working for everybody. If you need a little bit more time, that's also fine. It's important to add that we never really, we never want to copy, right? What we're looking to do is to try and sort of get under the skin of the painting, so to speak. We kind of want to seize out what is essential about the geometries or the spots, the major passages, the story of the light. What is this composition about? How do we understand it? How do we internalize it and see it as a composition, as opposed to trying to sort of mindlessly or kind of literally copy things. We got to from straight away. We've got to try and make understand that distinction between copying and transcribing. We want to think like painters, and we want to sort of understand how painting is a language. Um, I've got an absolutely brilliant book right now that I'm looking at called Themes and Variations, and it's 5 centuries of master copies and interpretations, and it's just amazing to see how much homage there is really throughout art history, and then so much surprising homage as well. Um, Many of our best, most loved artists really started off as copyists, so to speak. It's easy to forget that painting is a language. And those of you in Australia, I'm just looking at a Tiepolo copy from a head of Veronese, which is in the National Gallery of Victoria. Pretty cool.
I know the big Tiepolo there, but not the
not the small copy.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture. It's pretty nice one. It's quite interesting actually. Yeah, Las Meninas is a good one to go for. I'll put that on the Padlet now.
Josh, are you on the phone or are you talking to us? Because if you are, you're on mute.
Thank you. You just missed my monologue.
Because I saw you moving. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, what's going on here?
Sorry. Thank you. Gosh, this is recorded. How embarrassing. Sorry. So yeah, I was just saying to myself, apparently, firstly, there's 5 minutes left until we want to start uploading. The second thing is that what I find with color um, is that your momentary sort of glance at your painting is so important, right? So many of the answers you need are within that kind of split second of looking at your work, and I think that we all can progress at color by learning how to sort of react to that. And that's why I included that kind of flowery quote from Sarah at the beginning, because there's something kind of emotional and intuitive about it. And I think when we start thinking about things, over analyzing things, especially in a Premier Coup, things can get a little bit sticky, and we miss, how fresh that we need to make these notes. We need they need to be they need to be immediate, they need to be beautiful, and they need to reflect life. So yeah, just that kind of peripheral glance that we've spoken about, that indirect stare and a massive squint is hugely important when it comes to color. It really is. And sometimes, the slightest adjustments to a note make all the difference. And I tend to mix, at least in the beginning. I've got my palette knife and I have like 3 or 4 big puddles of paint, and then I get my brushes out, and I'm constantly tweaking, constantly adjusting. But the idea is to sort of find those aggregate notes that speak to the commonalities within a composition. The darks will have something in common, the lights will have something in common. They'll sort of be working with each other to reveal each other. So yeah, just if you can start uploading in a minute or so. I know that we haven't been working for so long today, and the talking and the lecture went on for slightly longer than normal. So I'm not expecting to see too much, but I think it's just helpful for those that are new to see how critiques go down. If you need to hold back, that's fine. But don't forget, we're really focusing on how a couple of spots come together. So I'm not, expecting to see much more than that in this initial critique. And please upload your original source material. If anybody's struggling with the Padlet, let me know.
I've already uploaded, Josh. Marcia.
Perfect. Did you just do it now? Okay.
Yes, of course it's not finished.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. All right. Perfect. Thank you so much. Let's have a look. Guys that are new at this point, even if you're not uploading, it's probably just worth looking at the screen just to get a sense of how these crits work. So I just need to find the Padlet myself. Give me a sec. Okay, where is it? I'm just going to email it to myself, actually. Sorry. This is a new computer and I haven't quite figured it out yet. Perfect, got it. All right. Sorry, it's a little slow for some reason. I'm running the Wi-Fi off my phone because our Wi-Fi is down at home. Okay. Nally Munchkin, let's begin. Do you have you uploaded the original? Yeah, okay, perfect. So, first things first is I think that you're starting a little bit too fast. You're prioritizing drawing a little bit. The way you're drawing is fairly useful, and what you've got is fairly useful. But the thing about color, right, is that color is very much about building relationships, right? And if you have something on your canvas too soon, that's too far off, connecting to the original material, then it has a domino effect that it begins to sort of, set up a series of false relationships, right? So if this was my piece, I think, okay, it's a fairly useful lay-in, right? There's nothing particularly wrong with it. It's well observed, it's sensitive. However, you're working in acrylic, but if I was working in oil at this point, I'd get my palette knife and I just do a very, very light scrape down scrape down a ghost. So I have kind of like the imprint of my initial sketch, and then I'd focus in on just two spots coming together, right? And I would be, I would if I was beginning to, when I was beginning to understand how spots came together, you have to really, really slow down, and you really just have to, just spend time being very, very sensitive to the intricacy of these notes. Baltus has a very, very, very sophisticated understanding of color, right? So firstly, I'd start off. I'd think, where is a strong point of contrast? A strong point of contrast is going to help you key all of the other relationships in the painting. And obviously, this light note is very important, and the way, the different kind of the difference in value between the figure and her jacket or whatever she's wearing. It's quite essential to understand how they're different from each other, but also how they interact together as lights in relation to the major darks moving through the composition. So I would kind of slow down. I'd focus on a passage like perhaps that, the moment where this jacket meets that dark spot, shadow spot, and the light on the torso. And if you're doing really, really well, then you start to move towards that mid-tone and shadow note across the torso there. That would be what I'd recommend. But you could really start anywhere, just so long as you bear in mind that every light note you mix is going to have to be somewhat under the brilliance of that jacket. Otherwise, it won't do its job. The other thing is that I think that you're, like I've said to you before, you're that usually I'm telling people to work more energetically and to work, with more kind of with more spirit and brushiness. Whereas I'd say with you've got that down. It's just a case of refining your geometries. You're the and seeing things a little bit more proportionally, right? So I love that you're making a really, really immediate statement about this figure, but what you really, really need to see is how the silhouette of this figure fits within the specific rectangle. The design, the rectangle is massively important to understanding, how this figure sits in space. Whereas right now, your figure's kind of lacking, proportional sort of integrity, which kind of like, I just think you'll get less from it, right? You're rushing just a little bit too much, and so you need to that will work in your favor once you can slow down a little bit, right? And it's good when you correct yourself. You don't want to correct yourself incrementally. You want to correct yourself with big statements, right? So just do paint how you're painting, but just keep adjusting things, keep changing things until they're tuned in, right? That's what we're going
Yeah,
for. Right. That's a lot to take in, but good start, and thank you for uploading. Who's next?
thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Anyone else? Slow today, guys. Amy, you've started. Awesome. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Super. Interesting composition, firstly. Right. Yeah. But it's a very, very yeah, a really strange fragment, and I like the thought that's gone into it. What I would say, obviously, you just started to lay things in, is that, particularly for that hand, we want to kind of look at the, I like to talk a lot about silhouettes, sort of the presence of that mass, the silhouette of that mass within the context of the rectangle. I think your idea for the composition is good, but in terms of more sort of specific geometry, I think you could spend a little bit more attention to understanding the kind of main shape and silhouette of that hand. Now, the way that I would approach that, just technically speaking, I don't think I've actually got a pencil here. Give me 1 second. Right. I'm going to use this pen as a prop. I kind of think about I think about this idea of stealing angles. So I don't tend to do this anymore, but in terms of I got used to seeing them. But initially, when I was a student, I would really, really be married to the idea of extending my hand, shutting one eye, kind of putting a straight edge like a pencil or a ruler or a credit card alongside the edge of the silhouette, and I'd kind of keep my arm very stiff, and I'd almost think of like transferring it directly onto my canvas or onto my paper, and then I'd take another one, I'd look for another large angle, and at that point I'd put it on my paper, and I'd have two angles. And when you have two angles, what you have are a set of relationships, right? And those relationships are very, very specific. The kind of thrust of the angle, the length of the angle, the distance between the two angles, the proportion of each angle in relationship to another. And that gives you a chance to really kind of wed yourself to the precision of the geometry that's in this Veronese. So compositionally wise, I think you've picked something very, very interesting, and it has the kind of presence of something that's understood. However, just in terms of the exact form, I think you need something that's going to root you more into the precise angles. And we're looking to really, even though there's all this kind of beautiful complex curvature, we want to sort of initially see things as shapes and thrusts of angle, and with every kind of change in pitch of angle, that relates to pictorial space. Does that make any sense? Is that helpful?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, nice start, and thank you for sharing. Who else has uploaded? Abigail, cool. All right. Okay. We need to work on color, and fortunately that's what we're doing this term. So the sort of drawing and abstraction you've got is good. You're a solid draftsman, and you're just becoming better and better. With color, you're rushing, right? The specificity of these notes is something incredible, right? And the only way we can wake ourselves up to the specificity of these notes is to slow the hell down, right? And to just really tweak one note next to the other until they activate each other, right? Until they they harmonize, right? Think about music, like two beautiful notes next to each other. Right now, these notes are too approximate, right? They're too that you're missing the kind of beautiful specificity of that kind of violet shadow, right? And the kind of and the stunning kind of tension and harmony you get with that gorgeous sort of yellowy, violety, orangey note that really feels like hot sunlight hitting the plane of that rock. You need to tune things in, and like I said, if you have just two spots together and the rest of your canvas is blank, that's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's the kind of restraint you need to get into the mindset and because you get into the level of focus needed to really activate notes, right? And these notes are about the most kind of, if you look at the sort of the whole canon of art history, Corot, it mixes some of the most beautiful notes out there that convey a sense of place, right? I've actually been to where he painted this particular painting in Civita Castellana in Italy, and it feels like this kind of certain special quality of light that you get at a certain time of day, right? And that's the power of beautifully observed spots. So slow down, and what you'll find is that notes that are as approximate as this will hold you back. They will kind of stop you from seeing the correct harmonies. So my advice would be, if you have a razor blade, or if you have a palette knife, a gentle scrape, and just hit them again. And also, it looks like, try and keep your the surface looks a little bit built up too quickly. Maybe, the paint looks a little bit too thick. That doesn't really bother me, to be honest. But, all the kind of changes that you're making within that rock, the light playing on the rock, are kind of not, they're not really reflecting an aggregate note, right? Before you see all these shifts in orange, right, you've kind of got to understand that they're kind of fluctuations of an aggregate note. So if you leave all those oranges out, it's absolutely fine, right? I think that when I really squint, they are still present, but you can kind of see how they relate more closely to the largest aggregate note, which is kind of present throughout the composition. It's here, it's here, it's here. It works throughout. So something to bear in mind. Slow down. Really, it's a little bit harder and a little bit more delicate work than I think that you realize right now. Okay.
Yeah, I did kind of know I was going too fast, and I just kept spreading it out,
We got it. It's first session back, and it is tempting, right? Because I am always telling everybody to be more urgent to get stuff down, but now this is a slightly different set of instructions where I'm saying, actually slow down, just kind of explore the complexity of these notes, explore what happens in your palette when you adjust things, when you tweak temperature. It's a slightly different mindset. And eventually, when we really wake up to them, when we start mixing and we build up our confidence and we've got some beautiful notes happening, and it will all reintegrate back into our process, and it will become part of how we express ourselves. So it's all good. And yeah, crack on. Nice one.
Thanks, Josh.
No worries. Stealth goanna. What is a goanna? Is a goanna like a lizard?
Yeah, big lizard.
Okay.
Goanna.
Yeah, we don't get lizards in London, unfortunately. Only in the zoo. Okay, have a look. There's some nice simplicity. The composition feels nicely distilled, but it's a similar problem to Abigail in the sense that you need to slow down and really push towards the richness of these notes. As much, at a certain point I will be less strict with color, and I'll say, it's these colors are open to interpretation. We're looking to just paint something beautiful, but I think that only really happens when we kind of sharpen our color sensibility. And so now the first thing I push you towards, and when it comes to color, like I said, it's always about that initial reaction. Like my feedback I'm getting from your work is not by looking, right? I'm seeing it instantly, right? And I'm not questioning myself. I'm trying to be reactive. And so the first thing I'd say is I'd look to I'd start with a really beautiful chromatic note, like this very special yellow. I mean, it's an insane note. These paintings, I'm sure he spent over up years on them. Some of them he would have spent years on. These aren't premier coups. So transcribing Vermeer is a challenge, right? But he does actually lend very well to transcriptions. But the first thing I do is I'd hit the richness chromatically of that curtain, because what it does is it kind of subtly creates a beautiful color space, right? This, it's kind of capturing the richness of the light, sort of first kind of hitting an object as it comes into the room, and somehow, as we lose saturation, it creates a beautiful color space from this window to the figure. And looking at the subtle difference between these two yellows, I think will activate something very special. And the other thing that's extraordinarily tricky with Vermeer is just how complex and rich his darks are, right? These notes for the darks on the figure, they're pure air, right? You don't really see many people mixing darks like that. Perhaps like Chardin and Corot, who we've spoken about. There's not many painters who have that ability. So those are worth reassessing. And just right now, I'd urge you to find a passage, right, and just be like, okay, this is me for today. I'm gonna see how far I can get these notes to harmonize. I'm going to keep asking questions, keep searching for feedback. Like, does this ring true? Is this rich enough? Does it reflect my experience? And just from a technical perspective, we're really, really looking to activate that kind of indirect stare, that momentary glance. How much can we retain from the painting in an instant? So we're losing our eyes less. We're trying to connect to our gut, trying to connect to our sort of pictorial eye. So yeah, the simplicity is nice, but I feel that you could push for a little bit more sophistication in the color. You could refine some of these silhouettes a little bit more. They're bordering on simplistic just a little bit, right? They need a touch of refining, and and that dark, this dark is just, some serious mixing. Like, Vermeer, of course, he's not a direct painter, right? He's using glazes and all sorts of things to create the sensation of color in his work. But with direct painting, you can find a beautiful equivalence for that, right? So I feel that, just dig a little deeper with the mixing. It's a good start, though, and lovely to have you back. All right. Nice one. Who else? Who else has got something for me?
Josh, I'll just.
Bye, Bav. All right, I'll get to you. I've just seen Nova Chroma.
Yeah, sure.
Drop something in the. We have got some nicknames on our Padlet, guys. You'll just have to excuse them. So yeah, about us. Decent lay-in. Decent lay-in. So first thing I'd say, for the notes that you have, actually coloristically, they are pretty complex notes. It's a good start. Value-wise, you're missing the story a little bit. Actually, the if you were just to look at that painting in black and white, just you see the tones, you'll see that there's not as much. The contrast isn't there. There's the kind of the kind of quality of color you're mixing is interesting. It's in the right ballpark. I think what you'll find is that there's a little bit more complexity still in those notes, and the way you'll get there is sort of by seeing, you see this note that you've mixed there, you almost need to see what the opposite note is on the other end of the chromatic scale to help kind of find the kind of unnameable quality of that color, right? That color somehow is able to reflect light, right? Whereas right now, your color is verging a little bit more on the kind of orangey yellow. But when I look at that artist, it's sort of like, oh, I can't really put a word to it almost, right? So the two things, touch more complexity in the color, and just before you move on, let's get the values a little bit more
closer.
Yeah, I often think about the value, like, I've talked about it, and you've heard me say this, but when you get a professional photograph done and they have that kind of light reader, that measures the quality of light within the room, you need to become very, very sensitive to the kind of the value relationships, how these notes are interacting, how light, how dark they are, and and how much light is coming back to your eyes. And what you'll find is that there's a little bit less contrast, and as you cultivate that, you'll become very, very sensitive to these small fluctuations of value. And often, I think often what people underestimate is how delicate the grayscale is, how delicate the tonal relationships are in excellent painting. Thank you, mate. Just drop it through. Cheers. Thank you. Sorry, it's the postman. Yeah. So good start though, and yeah, I can see that you're focused. Right.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Nice one. Vaibhav, let's get to you.
Josh, I can't find this one. I think I uploaded in the
Would somebody be kind enough to send Vaibhav the Padlet link whilst I'm just giving someone else a crit, please? Isabel, let's start with you. Okay, decent start. You've kind of, again, you've got a nice sort of sense of your composition and what you're going for. What you need to do is anchor your drawing a little bit more in experience, right? Right now, it's a little bit general, so it's kind of lacking that kind of underlying architecture that firms the structure and makes the geometries more convincing. And so my advice would be to reassess your relationships of angles and kind of find a moment of form to anchor yourself, right? So I'd start, for example, in this beautiful light note in the thigh, where it meets that dark, and you can see, I would start just sort of by looking at this curve, right, and almost sort of dissecting the curve of this dark note and seeing how this curve is broken down into very, very specific tilts and geometric decisions, right? And so again, like I mentioned to Amy earlier, it's a case of, really, really kind of seeking out every sort of shift within the geometry, looking for the sort of salient moments of angle that define that curve a little bit better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So I would sort of say, all right, this is my anchor point, right? This is where I'm going to start to build a truthful relationship of geometries and kind of like wedge yourself to that and then expand. Once you start to feel that the angles and geometries are kind of beginning to activate in that section of form, then you can say, right, I'm going to start sort of spreading this awareness to the rest of my composition. Now, a good person to look at for this particular kind of way of seeing is Ewan Uglow. Ewan Uglow's drawings in particular, really kind of show us, the kind of power and pictorial kind of thrust in space and angle and a line can have, right? So if you have a second, I would just Google Ewan Uglow drawings, just have a little look at the precision of his angles and the relationship from sort of line to line, So if you're in a section like this, you really want to start kind of looking, using diagonals, using verticals, really, really expanding and beginning to build relationships. And every single decision you make needs to relate to the previous one. I know that sounds kind of daunting, but eventually it kind of becomes an automatic way of building your work. But you really need to slow down to pay attention to those, pay attention to those angles and those geometric relationships. Is that helpful?
Definitely. Thank you.
Awesome. Nice one. Thank you for sharing. Right. Who else is in the mix? Anyone else uploaded?
It's Esther.
Esther. Oh, 1 second. I just pressed the wrong button. Cool. Give me a sec. Sorry, my internet connection is slightly slower today than normal because our Wi-Fi is bust up. All right. Esther, Essie, let's see what you got. We can really go so far. We can really become incredibly precise at discerning angles and dissecting curves and understanding geometry. It's exciting once you go down that road. Okay, let's have a look. So, oh, bloody hell. All right. Morandi, great choice. I'm a big fan. Let's have a look. Okay, Morandi is a really difficult person to transcribe from, just because his language is just it's so idiosyncratic, it's so strange. It's just like he's one of those singular figures, kind of a bit like Lucian Freud. You're kind of in trouble if you go a little bit too far down trying to speak his language, because it's just so personal. But you've started now, and it's always good to try for sure. So it's a similar critique. These kind of spots, these light spots that you're pulling out, they're just Morandi. I think some people think Morandi's a bit simple, and his drawing kind of lacks precision because of the sort of wobbly nature of his line. It's total nonsense. Like I kind of think of Morandi, he's almost like a finer draftsman, as like Michelangelo. He's unbelievably sensitive to certain qualities of drawing, and this sort of, especially kind of more abstract ideas about drawing. And I think that right now the kind of note and shape geometry that you're picking out from there, it's a little bit too simple, right? There's more. There's in a small passage like this, right? You almost need to sort of. I like to say, like, I almost imagine that I have to sort of expand these fragments of the form and almost see them like I'm painting a landscape, right? This kind of plane has just as much space as like a mountain or a hillside in a beautiful landscape. There's so much sensitivity and spatial awareness for the planes in a Morandi painting, and right now you're speeding past that, right? You need to kind of slow down and just kind of contemplate the space that this facet of light is taking up in the pictorial plane, right? It creates more sculpture than what you've understood so far. Now, this is I wouldn't have recommended taking this painting on for drawing, because it's a very kind of obscure Morandi. But at least in understanding a passage like this, you can really start to get into Morandi's mind and really sense that within these shapes, there's a lot of sculpture, there's a lot of form, there's a lot of presence, right? And what we tend to do in the beginning is we kind of glance past them, and we sort of, we don't recognize how much concentration is in every sort of millimeter of a Morandi painting, because there's a lot, right? So you need to sharpen your tool, and you need to go in, you take a section like that, and you need to kind of really sort of perform like a kind of surgery, so to speak. You're looking to look for the fine differences within the shapes, the exact kind of the exact proportions of that space, and just look for the adjustments needed, because right now this doesn't read as space, right? We need to recognize why this spot doesn't read as space, and we need to tune it in. So it's a useful start, and I understand the urge to want to draw from Morandi. He's like one of my top 5 painters. I adore him, but he's a tricky one to begin with. But I think there's a painting lesson to be had in a passage like that, and it actually relates a lot to the sort of structure you'd see in a cloud, actually, and when you're just first painting a cloud, right, it kind of has a certain simplicity like that. You kind of need to see plane to plane. So a little bit more refining, a little bit more. You need to be more careful in your geometry, looking from angle to angle, right? I make thousands of diagonals when I draw. I find like an anchor point, and I'm kind of measuring angle, diagonal to diagonal, looking from one passage to another passage. Like I try and relate everything to each other simultaneously, right? It's very, very active. Like when you're drawing a premier coup, you have to be at your most focused. You need to be really, really switched on. You need to be on the tips of your toes, right? You need to be making, tens of decisions per second. And then you take a break, then you chill for 5 minutes, 3 minutes, then you go back in again. You have to be very, very awake to try and emulate the kind of decisions that these painters are making, because they're on another level, right? And that's why we look to them. So good start, and thank you for sharing. Lovely to welcome you to the course.
Thank you very much.
No worries, no worries. Squint Player, I just saw you upload.
Yeah, I think it's slightly warmer.
Yeah, so you've kind of taken
crashing my phone.
Okay, so this is a good one for you.
Different.
I saw you upload this, and I'm like, okay, it's kind of almost like a grisaille. There's some slight kind of fluctuations in temperature, but the reason why I think it's good for you is because you can't paint this well, right? Unless your angles, your geometry, and your sense of shape is like switched on, right? And you have to look for these kind of gorgeous, sort of strange, very abstract, very invented passages of geometry within the spots, right? They're crisp, they're pronounced, they're gorgeous, and they also they create a lot of volume and a lot of space. So you've started, it's too floppy, right? You know that, right? You need to go in, you need your credit card out, or whatever, your ruler, whatever it is. You need to look for those crisp shapes, right? These are shapes that they're understood to the millimeter. They're kind of like origami-esque. They're not. Vermeer actually has, although his work it creates this sort of illusion of reality, more so perhaps than this Dickinson. But also his ability to discern shape is just like mind-blowing, right? And Dickinson's fabulous at that as well. So way more, even though we are talking about color this term, if you're going to take this on, you need to be way more tuned into the geometry, right? You need to be way crisper. It's too floppy. You're not building relationships. It needs to be crisper. Even when you look at Morandi, he has a kind of like wobbly quality to his geometry, but he is so switched on to shape. It's just like, and you know what I've told you this before, but it's good that I think that the choice of motif is a good one for you, and I'm happy to see it. So just you're going to need your palette knife or your ruler out to really kind of like firm this up. All right.
So you think I should actually use I'm never used to drawing like that. Use a ruler to draw a line.
You've done it. We've done it in
Have I?
You did it the last session of last term, and you have. Yes, you should do it, and the answer is yes. Yeah, I think I've told you guys about when I was a student. One of the most talented painters in our group was a girl called Lior, and when I first came to the studio, I was really confused because she was painting with like a little credit card or a kebab stick, and literally every single decision she made, I'm talking about hundreds of decisions, thousands of decisions in her composition, came from from stealing these angles, right? And it's a strange habit to get into, but once you get into it, you realize just like the kind of geometric integrity that are holding these compositions together, and how they relate, and how these geometries relate to each other. It's mind-blowing. So I've been using my brush to get the angles, but a brush can be good, but it might be that you need
maybe
even more precise, like go for a true right angle. And it's something you need. You can't avoid it, Anya. I told you it's going to be a slog integrating these geometries into your work, but it's so worth it. And you've got to pursue it. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Right, my pleasure. Okay.
I'm ready, Josh.
Nice one.
There.
The Squinting Squid.
The
tell
squinting.
the squinting squid is uploaded.
I'm really struggling with the colours, especially the flesh.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with everything, actually.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So right now, there's a kind of, you're missing a little bit the sort of tension in temperature. They're a little bit kind of like samey. There's a kind of coolness that's pervaded all of these notes.
Yeah, I'm struggling to get the warmth in the flesh at all, but especially in the darks.
Yeah, so that's a strange note. That's kind of like there's like a kind of very, very slightly a weird kind of cadmium, green, burnt sienna, kind of like a cooler blue, maybe a violet balancing that out. It's a very complex note.
Every time I look at it, I see is an orangey green, or no, it's a violety brown. It's like it changes.
That's the problem with color, right? We stare at it too long and we see a million different things. But you need to make a decision, and at the end of the day, it's a transcription. It's your painting. So what I tend to do, what I think is very helpful, is I distinguish the main chromatic relationships between the lights and the darks. So like you said, I can see that kind of shadow is living upon something more in the kind of greeny blue spectrum. So therefore, in the lights, I'll look for something in the kind of perhaps like reddy, yellow, orange kind of world, right? And so that's kind of helps me in the beginning to sort of separate the two worlds. And then it's a question of tweaking temperature, and tweaking temperature and sort of understanding, where things are kind of warmer, where they're cooler, the kind of strange warm greens and blues that we find, and the kind of straight and the cooler oranges. There's a kind of, they seem like counterintuitive things, but they come together through cross mixing. And I think that you're probably overthinking things a bit too much. And for example, if this was mine, in the brief second I took to look at your painting, I'm seeing that this blue is miles off, right?
It's way too dark. Yeah.
I'm just like, it's a little bit too dark. It's a little bit too blue.
It's got to be more violet in it, maybe.
Yeah, it's way more violet, but it's like a cool violet. So you probably have some like cad lemon yellow involved. So you've got to be really, really quick. If it's as off as that, you've got to be ruthless. You've got, right, take your knife to it, hit it again. Doesn't work, hit it again. And it's quick decisions. It's very active work. You've got to be right on your tips of your toes. Your nervous system's got to be real fired up, and it's tiring. So you work for as much with your best energy, and then you take a little break, and then usually when you come back to your work from that break, you'll see, you'll be fresher. You'll see where you need to adjust things. So right now, there's a slightly kind of monochrome feeling within this figure. So, but I would probably, I'd probably start with that blue, just because that's like, it's throwing things off, right?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Nice one.
Thanks, Josh.
Pleasure. Who else?
Josh.
Yeah. You found it? Worked it out?
Yeah, it's uploaded.
Thank you to whoever helped.
Sure.
Bath. Okay. Oh gosh, fuck's sake. All right. Yeah, procedurally looks like you're thinking along the right terms. Let's just have a look at color. The way you're approaching it is helpful. What a beautiful painting, by the way. Absolutely stunning painting. Okay, yeah, let's have a look. Okay, what you're suffering from a little bit, and something that we've spoke about last term, is understanding the aggregate notes, right? I understand that there are fluctuations within a note like that sky, right? But particularly in our transcriptions, we must see what the perfect equivalent is for this silhouette, for this spot, for this shape, right? You know, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 decisions, right? Your whole painting shouldn't have that many decisions in it, right? If you're distracted by changing hue, you won't be able to see the kind of underlying abstraction that ties together the lights and the darks, right? You need to find a little bit more restraint and a little bit more kind of meditation on the largest qualities. You know, when you really squint, you'll see that when I really squint, basically everything in this middle ground and in this foreground becomes one note, right? Everything. That sky becomes one. Maybe if I'm being generous, I'll give you like a second note, right? And then that will quickly, if you can work out these broad passages, right, and be very specific in the silhouette of these passages, right, it gives you the opportunity to begin to set up the figure, right? You're just seeing things all the shifts, right, and you think you're opening your eyes too much, right? You need to squint way more. All the shifts are stopping you from seeing the language of this painting. So slow down. Tune in these big notes even more. Look, if you can make a broad spot, if you can simplify the silhouette of this whole dark, that kind of that diagonal shape, then do it. That's like, you must jump on that, right, as soon as you can, because if you don't seize it, it's difficult to understand and internalize the composition, right? Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, awesome, good. Beautiful choice of subject. Has anybody? Natalia. Okay. So it's a nice note. You know, it's a nice note, kind of independent of what you're looking at. It doesn't quite relate to this note, right? And you've missed the design, right? The way that you've structured the design of this rectangle, it's the wrong rectangle, and you know, it's too compressed. You know that right now, Natalia. You know you shouldn't be doing that. So you need to you know, either crop, you know, around there. Well, that will help you get the right proportions. And the other thing is that you cannot mix a sky in isolation, unless you set up, you know, one of these darks, another dark there. You will never understand what's happening in that note, right? It's always one note next to another note. The other thing is there's too much variety in this sky, right? It's a much more simple note. It's brighter. You know, I can see a reason for sort of having to turn this sky into 2 notes, because, you know, you've got this sort of beautiful, more saturated sky as it's closer to your eye, right? You know, and as it sort of domes back, right, you lose color. You head a little bit more towards the yellow, right? So you could simplify this note in this sky into 2 notes, because you know, it says something about the space of the composition. But yeah, so yeah, I think you need to slightly reassess the way that you're approaching things, pay more attention to the design of the rectangle of the composition, and don't think about a note in isolation, and don't break it down too much. And also the proportion of the sky to the ground is off, right? There's more sky to ground. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks.
No worries. Who has uploaded? Have I missed anyone? Have I covered everything?
I have done.
Awesome.
I think it should be.
Where yeah, Toro.
Down.
I like your explanation of your
Toro
of your nickname. Okay. Some sensitive drawing. And some sensitive color. You're moving a little bit too quickly for the quality of line that you're going for. You know, like and also you're missing the key and the abstraction of this passage, right? you need to sort of understand the exact moment it falls into shadow. I think it's not far off, but you're just overcomplicating it a little
I
bit.
just scraped it.
Yeah. And it's a slightly, the light note is the key in this key in this painting. It's a very high key painting, right? The shadows are really, really light, and the lights are pretty light, and the value relationships are quite close. So it's a very particular key. What I would suggest is I'd suggest keeping yourself isolated in a moment like this, and just refining it, right? You're
Do a crop.
you're slightly, not necessarily, you don't have to crop it, but you're slightly the local color of whatever piece of fruit this is. Is it a quince? I don't have a clue, or a peach or whatever. It's you're slightly letting these oranges distract you from what's happening structurally, and my teacher Israel Hirschberg used to talk about this painting, and he talked about this particular piece of fruit because he thought it was beautiful and how it resembled a lady's bottom, and it does. It's very, very, it's very, very similar to a figure, very, very similar. Just structurally, because your initial lay-in and your attention to the silhouette is pretty, it's pretty careful. It's just not careful enough, right? So if you're going to work with this kind of level of attention, which I think is a totally noble thing to do, you need to slow down and realize that there's more structure, right? There's more structure, and you don't want to get, you need to slow down and see the figure within this passage, and see the key of the painting, right? These notes in the background, they are so close together. They're so beautifully.
Yeah, that's what excites me, I think, because I'm used to very contrasty.
Yeah,
tonally.
it's a very unusual key.
Yeah.
And it's a really good one to copy, but you've got to be like sharp as hell to unless you want to simplify things, and if that's the case, you just need to squint a lot more. You need to, you can treat this as a thumbnail, you can take on the whole thing, but you need to be way more simple, right? You need to look past a lot of these shifts in hue, right? And when I squint, I see something way more unified. So it's up to you. You're either kind of going in it with the sense of going for a fragment and developing the structure in the drawing, or you're really looking to nail the spots, to see the essence, right? You've always got to see the essence, but you can just leave it as a kind of essential approach. So you've got to be a little bit more clear in your mind what you're going for, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
No worries. Great choice. Yeah, I love that painting. All right. Anyone else? Okay. I'm here if anyone else wants to upload, and we'll work till about one-ish today, because I spoke a lot in the beginning. We've got loads of people here. There was some technical difficulties, so I'll make sure everybody gets the time they need, hopefully for a second look as well. Just writing to Lou if anyone needs me back in a sec. Okay, Diana, thanks for uploading. I've just put yours on the Padlet. Can you hear me? Diana?
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, nice one. Good start. This is just a really, really subtle painting. Absolutely incredible quality of edge and a very complex situation. It's front lit, so we have to kind of understand the sculpture of the form, how it turns from the forms that are first being hit by the light, like her belly, how it turns, how the abdomen kind of sits on top of the obliques and the hips and the rib cage, and have to sort of imagine how the back of her body is in the shadow, the side that we can't see. And we're just sort of getting some very, very subtle kind of last suggestions of her shadow on the edge here. So what you sort of need to understand when painting from the front light is that the side that you cannot see, right? And that's everything that's sort of beyond, behind her. If you imagine you could walk around her and you'd be able to see the shadow on her back. The general silhouette is not bad, but she's you're missing the kind of saliency of where the silhouette tapers, right? So where the form here of this hip, where it gets wide, right? You've got to be very, very sensitive to where it gets wide on both sides of the contour, and then you've got to look for the exact moment the hip section tapers in, right? Where it kind of moves in, and then you'll tend to see in a section like that, just like here, there's a little connecting angle, right? And then you've got a new form, right? The line is representing a new form, and the rib cage is kind of becoming wide, tapering out, becoming wide here, and then the silhouette is tapering in into the shoulder section, right? You've got to be really sensitive to how the silhouette interacts with all of the structure that is inside the internal structure of the figure. And this is a very, very delicate, complex, very, very delicate, complex subject matter. It's super difficult. But so it's just a case of refining your silhouette and understanding how what's happening on the edge of the form relates to what's happening internally. So right now, the abdomen area, it doesn't feel like the shape of structure. So we need to sort of use our eyes to sort of understand how. You probably need a slightly better quality image. There's a higher resolution version of this on Google Art Projects. If you type in Google Art Projects and the source, you'll get a slightly better version. But you need to understand that this light on the figure is the light that hits a structure. And so the next thing you need to understand is, where does this structure turn into shadow, right? And as soon as you understand that, you'll then realize that there's another structure here, right? There's a new structure, and how does this structure turn into shadow, and how is the contour manifesting that, right? You need to maybe work a little bit from the inside out, and yeah, it's a really, really subtle painting. It's a hard one, but you haven't had a bad start. It's just a case of asking yourself, like, what is form, right? What is form? How do I create form? How does the contour, the silhouette relate to structure, right? Those are the important questions to ask. I think that where you are understanding that better is in the breasts, right? The breasts have a little bit more structural awareness, but the contour that you're drawing is a little bit too it's a little bit lacking specificity, lacking a little bit of feeling. It needs to be refined. You need to sharpen your charcoal and to really try and trace the beauty of that silhouette, make it even more special, even more particular. Now it's very hard with Ang because he's the best at doing that. So you're yeah, you're looking at one of the best examples, one of the most linear, most sophisticated draftsmen that have ever lived, if not the. So it's hard, but you've made a good start. It's just a case of keep tuning things in, right? Keep asking questions. I've given you what I'd say is like a few clues of things I think you could do to refine it, and now just try to refine it, right? Does that make sense?
Thank you.
But it's a it's not a bad start. There is there are beginnings of suggestions of form. It's just you need to, instead of suggesting them, you need to really become more confident and do your best to understand them, and that's just what drawing is, right? We start with something sometimes more general, and then we refine it, and it's just a process like that, and it's perfectly normal, and it's a good start. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, guys, if you can start uploading images for a final crit. Just to let you all know, I'm usually in the studio over the weekends, and with the online group, I'm more than happy to look at what everybody's been up to. If you decide to work for another couple of hours, I'm always happy to see and crit whatever you've been doing later over the weekend when I get a second. So don't worry if the session ends and you feel like you needed a few more words of crit. They're here for you over this weekend if needed, and that includes people that have just joined us for the introductory session. All right. Whenever you're ready, guys.
I got mine up.
All right, awesome. Hold on one second. Okay. Goanna, let's have a look. Less than a minute ago.
Yeah. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. It's moving in the right direction. Yeah, Vermeer. Vermeer. He's just, like I mentioned previously, just the notes in a Vermeer, the silhouettes, the drawing, it's all just so finely tuned, that to make a thumbnail of it and to get at the essence of something so so fine, it is a challenge, is a real challenge. But you've you've continued to improve it, and the way that you're kind of structuring things and ordering things is nice. I just think that on the whole, you're moving in the right direction, but you could continue to refine what you have in the sense of the silhouettes. Could be a little bit more specific, and so could the notes. However, I think that you've proceeded well. Did you purposefully crop it, or did that just kind of hold on, sorry.
Yeah, I cropped it. Just somehow when you take the photo from a bit further back, the color looks more true.
Slightly. No, sorry. That's me getting confused. Ignore me. It feels like
Okay.
well, I do feel like this silhouette, this note for the wall, it's slightly crammed, right? I think it's a slightly, geometrically speaking, it's sorry, wrong image. there's a bit more space from this edge to there, right? See what I mean? Not a lot. It's a small thing. I think that for the most part, you're proceeding well. Your mixtures have improved a lot, and it's just a case of going even further, trying to refine things to the point when there's even more synthesis. I tend to see when in terms of, from my perspective, when I see somebody improve, from stage to stage as much as you have, I would just tend to say keep doing it, because things are moving in the right direction, and there's not really worth over analyzing. But just a few things, just a few specific crits, subtle. Sorry, let me just tune in myself. Well, the first thing that hits my eye is this note, right? It's a very important moment, geometrically speaking, and within the composition overall, right? And I just think, it's slightly richer, deeper in value, and just the aggregate note for the table is a little bit more special and specific. And then, when I was looking at a note like that and trying to tune it in and get it where I want to be, I'm instantly looking between these two spots, right? Moving from spot to spot, and then I'm looking at the relationship between these three spots, right? And then I'm going to kind of rotate around the composition, and then I'm going to constantly keep refining. I would consider pulling out some of these really, really subtle geometries, these really, really subtle notes, very, very, very carefully, right? Very carefully, because they just enrich the composition. And the other thing is that it's worth refining this silhouette, right? It's worth giving it a little bit more specificity. And I think that your note for the dark isn't bad, but can you see that very, very special note, the difference coloristically from this cloth or whatever the hell it is to that pot is what makes this painting just feel like, I don't know, there's no words for it, right? It's an incredible, standing in front of a mirror is a very special feeling. And it's just those very, very, as much as we want to group things, right, it's the very, very subtle differences that bring life to our kind of to the simplicity. But it's moving in the right.
Definitely helped when you said to start with the yellow. That definitely, because I would have ordinarily, and I was building up from the darks. Which left everything pretty muddy, and then so I've actually darkened the wall a bit, which is not what I was, and made it blue. I don't know, I'm trying to find a contrast, I guess, to make those kind of sing. The yellow.
Exactly. No, I think, like I said, I think it's moving in the right direction. Just could do the right sort of tuning to keep things singing, to make to strengthen the kind of synthesis between your transcription and what you're looking at. But there's lots of good things going on in it, and it's definitely improved. Just Jim, the shape, the proportion of that spot, it's quite important. So I would just see it. The wonderful thing about the mirrors, you've got these, when you look at the silhouettes of the form, it's like the precision is mind blowing. It's like kind of like an origami kind of. I don't know. It makes me think of or some Japanese art. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's wonderful. Keep going. I think that you could find more precision in your silhouettes and a little bit more richness in your notes. And I would start here, because right now what you've got for there just doesn't have the right kind of integrity yet. Okay.
Yeah.
There's some very nice structure and good. Yeah, there's lots of good things going on, and I think it's got great potential. So that's good to see. Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Who's next, guys?
I put mine up, Josh.
Okay, sweet. Axiom breaker.
Yeah, to be honest, that was ChatGPT's idea.
Okay.
I liked it.
It's nice, yeah. Okay, that note for the shadow is way better. This is a nice note, but the kind of the sense of play. This what I really like about this study. It's quite a unique study, even for Corot, is that it just screams like a kind of sense of space, right? There's a kind of certain specificity to the way that these notes are keyed in that just has, just like, it's so, you can tell it's so true to where he stood. And fortunately I've been to this location and I could confirm that. And there's something, you've definitely improved the note for the dark, but this feels kind of like a heavier, kind of dingier environment in terms of your spots, and like I said, your feedback, the way that is what you get from looking at that painting for a second, right? It kind of bypasses your thought process. It's a feeling, it's a sensation, it's an emotion, if you want. And I just think that, yeah, firstly, good job for finding a nice equivalent for that dark, but this light doesn't really feel like the spot that is the light to that dark, right? This dark is indicative of the right kind of flavor of color. Even that note could probably be a touch more light, a touch more airy, right? And I think that you need to think when you're mixing this note, right? It's got to be the light to this shadow, right? When you get the right note, it will kind of, it's like it's a lights on moment, right? And it's just a touch too noisy. There's some kind of moments where it feels like it's moving in the right direction, but on a whole, this aggregate note is a bit too dirty. So it's worth kind of scraping back and just finding a cleaner, more simple representation for the light hitting that plane. And yes, sky is still a little bit too heavy. You can see that, it looks like he's almost leaving a little bit of the imprimatura, a very light imprimatura underneath. They're very, very delicate notes. You're a little bit too dark, a little bit too kind of nameable blue. There's a sort of certain kind of violety tension in that sky. It's very delicately placed. So you need to keep chasing the specificity, but well done, because in Tuesday night we're talking about the kind of quality of color that you find in darks and shadows, and that's certainly much more in the right direction. So that's a plus. But yeah, the whole atmosphere, it's lacking atmosphere, and that's where you need to tweak it, and a little bit more simple, right? And just get into the headspace of simple note, and possibly, you're exploring the edge in, the transition between these notes a little bit more. Make sense?
So when you say simple notes, you don't necessarily mean fewer colors in the mix, or
I do. Not fewer colors in the mixture, fewer colors in the spot, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want 1 or 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I keep trying to do a sort of broken color thing to try and get things to kind of work, but maybe I need to just make a better.
It's hard, yeah. I can see the reason that you'd want to do that, but in this painting, if you chase the local color too much, what happens is you miss the kind of sensation of looking at the way planes work, kind of plane to plane, right? And then if you can understand the planes, it's really easy to break them down, right? Because the hardest thing to comprehend is the first understanding of the mass, right?
Okay. Thanks, Josh.
No worries. Yeah, once you understand the generalities, like, you can paint the hell out of it, right? You can develop it as much as you want, but if you miss those generalities, that you miss the essence, then it's going to evade you. Okay.
Yeah, so would you say with this you basically just have like rock face and light?
Pretty much. I think that you've got to tell a hell of a lie, I think, to kind of to see beyond things a little bit more. There might be, and I think that orange is once you understand the aggregate note a little bit more, the orange is not as a deviation from the main note as you might think. I think it's it's just a kind of fluctuation of the aggregate note, right? Once we get the aggregate notes and then we begin to sort of structure and include drawing, what we realize is that the smaller forms fit in very tidily into the larger sense of planarity, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, nice.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Anyone else?
Josh, I just uploaded.
All right, awesome. Mhm. Mhm. It's better, but it's still, let me just have a look. Ooh.
Yeah, I just worked on the background for the most of the part.
So you're still breaking up the abstraction a little bit too early, right? When I really squint, like this operates as within the family of these darks, right? Seeing this as within the family of the dark statements, seeing the commonality with all the other darks will help you understand this composition a little bit more. Still a lot of describing happening here. It's more about kind of the what, you're painting the what a little bit more than the how, right? We've spoken about that recently. It needs to be, when you've got to almost imagine that you're looking at it from like 200 meters away, right? Just like with these thumbnails, you're just like, you're just kind of painting, you're painting like the idea, and then all the rest of everything else can fall into it. And so in my opinion, you can't really squint enough when you're working on a small thumbnail, right? Yeah, and then that still just needs a little bit more restraint, and that I think will tie things together even better. Just even more simple, and it will help you see the broadest silhouettes of the darks against the light. And if you think about all of those ink drawings that we've referenced, those are worth remembering for something like this. Okay.
Got it. Thanks, Josh.
Anyone else uploaded? Natalia, I can see you uploaded 12 minutes ago. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look. Mm-hmm. There's some nice structural thinking, right? You have, when you have, your drawing has some solidity to it, but in terms of color, it's you didn't adjust the design, right? So that's it's never really going. These paintings, drawing is before anything composition, right? And when we're looking at these compositions, we want to oh, you did adjust it a little bit. Okay, I can see. We really want to understand how, we need to imagine that we're out in the landscape, or we've got our viewfinders, right? We really want to, a viewfinder really kind of helps us see how these masses, these simple forms fit into an idea of a composition. A composition is an idea. It's like something that leaves a sort of visual imprint on our mind's eye. It's more about the sensation of looking than describing things. And right now it feels like you're just a little bit stuck in the literal side of things. I want you to to remember, to look and to remember a little bit more. And in a way, you'll want to paint what you can remember more than what it is you're seeing, and so when you paint from your memory, you'll see it will help you adjust and tweak things and change the silhouettes and get a closer connection to what it is you're looking at. And you'll see, very quickly when you're painting like that how different the sky, the aggregate note for the sky is, and how dark that is, because the notes will leave a kind of memory to you in the same way that you can remember a tune of a beautiful song, and you hum it to yourself, right? When you look and you experience paintings in that way, it will help you correct your statements, because I think right now you're using your eyes too much, and that's kind of a little bit of a danger. So look, the first thing I'd say is you need to readdress the sky, and there's no point of drawing lots of different structures until you can get this relationship right. And then, for this gentle note of the houses, like you can see it's such a delicate gray, right? It's so desaturated, and a beautiful note that kind of encapsulates the air of all the objects reflecting inside of it. Whereas this doesn't do that. This note is a bit of a blunt statement, right? Mm-hmm. So you can't move around your composition, because what you'll end up doing is spreading all of these false notes, right? So if you can focus on an area passage like this, you'll get into and you begin to tune those notes to where they need to be. You'll get into the right mindset, and everything else will be in tune, in harmony with everything else, all the other variables. But if you spread all of this, it ends up being like noise. It becomes noisy, and it becomes chaos, and we don't want too much chaos.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, good. Yeah, be more careful in your first mixtures. Anyone else uploaded?
I'm going to upload.
All right. Owen, you here? I don't know if Owen's here. He's just started working from this Rubens. He's just laying things in right now. Very complex composition. Anyone else?
Yeah, Joshua, I'm just taking the photo.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
Someone else I think just uploaded, but I don't know who that is. Michelle, was it you?
Well, I could do. Basically I've ruined it, but it's going to get back.
You don't have to upload. You don't have to. You don't have to.
All right, I'll delete. Oh no, it's gone now.
You don't have.
I'll delete it.
You can delete it. Don't worry. If you feel like you're still tweaking things, I'll look later. Okay.
I can, but that's new. Yeah.
It's up to you. It's up to you. Oh, it's gone.
Oh, right. No, I'll put it back up then, because
no stress. No stress.
I'm just going too fast, but if there's someone else that.
No stress.
I think.
Anyone else?
There we go.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Okay.
It's gone up, but it's very in between stage, so I'm just going too fast. Hence the nickname.
I usually re-upload. Is this the latest? Okay, yeah, let's have a look.
I'm working. I've gone back in.
These notes feel a little better. I mean, I actually think that this is color-wise is more it seems like you're warming up to the key, right? These are quite beautiful notes. That note for that shadow is lovely. There's kind of like a pearlescence to these colors.
Yeah.
I think that what you can see all these variety, these varieties in color, they don't break the sensation of the plane. I don't really think that's happening in that passage there yet. These passages still feel a bit too literal and fussy. They need.
Yeah.
You could kind of work out what's happened in terms of the essence of these two passages, but this seems like you're warming up, and seems like you're being more and more careful with your mixtures, which is it's the right direction. You just got to do more of it. Okay.
I think I'll have a break. That's always good, because I've just sort of getting a bit clumsy.
Yeah, fresh eye, but yeah, there's something nice about the work you're doing here. Just, I think that what you're missing a little bit in these passages are the here and here is the squint, right? You've lost your squint a little bit, whereas this one feels a little closer. Feels a little bit more felt, right? So good stuff. All right, Anya just uploaded.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still working on it.
Yeah, it's better. It's better, but it's not quite.
I'm pushing it. I can see.
Yeah.
I can see things with the geometry that aren't right.
Yeah, you're squashing this plane a little bit, right? You're trying to cram it.
Which plane? Sorry.
To the left of the breast.
Let me. Sorry. Which one? On the left. Yeah. There should be more of a curve, isn't it, around the hip?
A bit more. It's a bit more room, right?
Wavy.
Yeah. No. It's a bit broader, right? You got to see it.
Okay. Yeah. I brought it in. It was too much. Now
got to see it more as the kind of, as the shadow, as the shadow to this light, right? It's where this whole section falls into shadow. Yeah. It's a bit crammed right now.
It's a bit more stretched out, isn't it?
Broad of shape, yeah, but it's moving in the right direction, but it's not quite happening yet. You have to see those facets, those spots, those shapes. You have to relate to them as sculpture, right? You got to understand their sculptural integrity. That is missing.
Yeah, I can see it's not, especially on the left side. It feels quite wrong.
Yeah, keep tweaking it. All right. Anyone else uploaded? No, yet. We got it. We're going to finish up quite soon, guys. Claire? Waiting. Owen, I can see.
Yeah, I've ruined mine, but I will. I'll show you. Yeah.
Okay, Owen, I can see you're here. Not much to say. Just looks like a useful, interesting start. There's a lot of not beautiful chaos in this Rubens. I guess it's I think that what's helpful when taking on subjects as complex as this is to kind of see like a broader story of the lights and darks, right? To almost sort of see how a dark like this will find its way all the way up to this column up there, for example. If you sort of squint things down, you can kind of see how a dark like this belongs to a very, very broad passage of darks that kind of weaves its way through the lights and helps you find a way out of the composition. It's like kind of an interesting sort of jigsaw puzzle of shapes. It's a beautiful subject, and it looks like a really interesting start too. So look forward to seeing how that develops. Anyone else? Because we've got to sign off fairly soon.
Just loading it now.
All right, cool. I'm wondering who's still here. Isabel? Amy?
I am here, but I'm too slow.
Who's that, sorry?
It's Shaha.
Shaha, okay. You're too slow. All right, well, you can always send it to me later.
Okay.
Anyone else? I'm waiting. Isabel, you got something for us? Amy?
I don't. I couldn't get the angles. I tried.
Okay. All right. No worries.
I kind of ruined mine and then started again, so I don't really have anything to show.
Now listen, that's something that is worth mentioning. Premier Coup is high stakes, right? It's I think when you're painting Premier Coup really, really well, if you have 2 paintings that survive out of every 10, I think you're doing a fantastic job. It's high risk painting. It's high, but it can be high reward, especially for sort of understanding and comprehension of painting. So having a failure is, if you can persist and keep failing, then good things will come out of that. And I can vouch for that. I think I've told a few of the students in this group, but I think I must have made, like, in my first year as a student, I must have scraped about more than 100 drawings to have one relatively good one. So it's can be quite savage sometimes. But anyway, look, I think everybody had an interesting start today. I hope it was a useful session. I'm still waiting for Claire, if you're going to upload. Okay.
Yeah, Nat has uploaded.
Okay, Nat has uploaded. All right, I can see Squinting Squid first, so I'll just have
go for it.
I think that the drawing is a bit better, right? But
the colours are so cold, though. I just can't seem to get that orangey glow.
I kind of think that you were struggling with the notes, so you can't, and then you lent on your drawing, which is okay because you're setting up the foundations for the spots a bit better. But I think the color's not happening yet. But the way that you're simplifying, the way that you're understanding the form is really, really helpful. So if you have the energy for it, I think kind of scraping down and just reinvestigating the tone and the note is going to help you a lot. The note for the light in the figure is probably the most successful note out of all of them. I like the spontaneity of that beautiful warmth on the edge of the dark there. That kind of impulsive reactive painting is nice, but just as a whole, like coloristically, it's kind of, it's not. You're not.
Yeah, it's just so cold. I just can't get any. I don't know. The skin tone is just. Yeah. Everything's looking really cold.
I still think
I've tried opening my blinds and turning lights on. But
I think that your biggest issue is still this blue, right? It's
okay.
It's still kind of a nameable blue. It's still too dark, right? It doesn't feel like the kind of quality of light and tone that you have. This looks like a window that's illuminated by very large kind of source of light on a brilliant day, and it creates this it just creates this kind of exquisite effect, and really worth chasing. But
I'm trying to work from a screen. Is that the best way to do it?
I think working from a screen is absolutely fine. No issue with that. I just think it's just
the wrong colors.
They're the wrong values, wrong value and wrong color. So just keep tweaking things.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll give it a scrape back and
sometimes
those colors again.
Sometimes the adjustments that we make are have to be pretty brutal, and you've got to get into that kind of you've got to get into a ruthless sort of state of mind to get the color.
Major scrape back on this one.
Sometimes like we think that we're changing things, but we're just not. We're not making enough adjustments, and we got to sharpen up. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Nat, where are you? Forget your nickname. Nova Chroma. Here she is. Okay. It's a bit. It's the drawing actually isn't too bad. The sort of abstraction that you're seeing is in the right ballpark actually, and it looks like actually your drawing is improving, but it's coloristically it's dreary, right? These strangely keyed Baltus paintings, like he's really having a lot of fun with color here, and and also the value relationships are super, very, very interesting and unusual key, and these notes are heavy. So you've got to try and they actually started a lot better, and that's a really important lesson to learn when it comes to color. Like often your first decisions, your first instincts when you're fresh, you've got good energy, you're feeling awake, that that kind of reactivity is probably where you're going to do some of your best work. And sometimes when we start trying too hard, or drawing kind of takes over from our painting mind, like things can get a little bit dirty. So I think, going forward for this term, it's going to be a good idea to alternate between drawing and painting. So you can continue to sort of like build that foundation in drawing, and it will help you kind of distinguish better between the work that you're doing in color and the work that you're doing in structure, and improve upon your forms. So I can actually see that this looks like your drawing brain is the way you're thinking about drawing is improving from last term quite a lot, actually. But yeah, color wise, a little bit dreary. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure. Anyone else? Any more? All right, cool. It's been a long session. I'm sure everybody's worked hard. Just wanted to say thank you. Thank you very much for showing up and being part of our introductory session. If you've got any questions later on, you want to send me your work for an extra crit, or if you decide to start another painting this weekend, I'd be more than happy to see. Any more questions about the group, what we do, what we've got coming up, hit me up anytime. It's lovely to meet some of you. Nice that some of you who I've chatted with before get to join in with us for the first time. Have a lovely weekend, and look forward to seeing how these transcriptions develop. Take care, guys. Ciao.
Ciao. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll upload the
thank you.
My pleasure. I will upload the recording. So if anybody wants it, I can just email it. It'll probably be ready in about half an hour or something. All right.
Cool.
Bye. Thanks.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
My pleasure. See you.